So race day is always hard. It's where
I think 2 days before race day is always hard, and
that's very true. That was where I fell apart. And she was very kind to my stressfulness.
I think it's not worth mentioning. I think it's important to let people know that, because even though we had tried to plan to not have it be that way, I mean, we came away from that saying, you know what, we need to go the opposite direction. We need to know that 2 days before the race is hard and it is stressful and there's all these things you have to do.
Yep.
And he had this, I think, grandiose idea of, trying to get things done early and having Friday to just chill and relax and hang out together, and that did not happen.
Yep.
And so when it doesn't go according to what you had in your mind, it's disappointing and it's frustrating. And then, like I said, you compile that with
Hey guys, welcome to episode 25 of the Odd Inspiring Athlete podcast. This week we spoke with an awesome guest, a returner, Coach Josh Wolf, and his amazing wife, Tricia. We talked about the Wolfpack, Kona 2019, what it takes to compete mentally, physically, as well as what is a community and what drives Josh. Great episode, lots of good things to tune into. But before we get started, let's go through our housekeeping items real quick. First and foremost is my caveat, of course, which is I am not a professional that works in the health and fitness field. I am just an everyday person like the rest of you that has a lot of passion around health, fitness, and nutrition, and helping others. I have, like many of you out there, been on my own roller coaster ride of dealing with health and fitness weight issues, all due to poor health habits. And it wasn't until I got the help of a very patient professional coach that this changed for me. Second is our goal, which is to speak with industry professionals about topics trending in the health and fitness community. And this is really our way of giving back. And that the podcast itself is really meant for any type of athlete. So you could be someone who's just getting started on your own journey and you're confused with all the information that's available everywhere. Or you could be someone who's a seasoned professional. You've been doing it for a while and you just like to hear what the smart and practical guys have to say. Third is we love hearing from you guys. If you guys have feedback for us, comments, you just want to say, hey, you can reach out to us on Facebook, Instagram. We also have a phone number. It's a Google voicemail, Twitter, and an email. So you can get us any way that is possible that I think of other than Morse code to get a hold of us. I will put that information in the show notes. Let's go ahead and get started with the good stuff. Okay, Josh, before we get started, let's give me your origin story. How'd you get started? How'd you get into what you're doing today? Just kind of give us like a quick download.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good to be here again. Been here before.
We're excited.
And the story, I think, is sometimes a little shocking to people in a sense that, right now I do Ironmans. I've done 8 of them. I just recently finished one, that's why I'm here, right? We're going to talk about that.
Yep.
Done 100 triathlons, and you look at that, and this guy has probably always been athletic and fit. Mm-hmm. That's just not the case at all. Mm-hmm. I didn't do any sports growing up, all through middle school, all through high school, into all kinds of bad things, substance problems, depression, and just going down the wrong path. And actually, this is kind of what pulled me out of it, finding endurance. I found my endurance. And from that, I'm able to basically rebuild my self-efficacy, my self-esteem, even like, you know, my belief system has all derived from completing endurance activities. So it started with a 5K and then ended finally in a marathon, and then all of a sudden I'm hooked. So that's kind of
one led to another.
Yeah,
just kind of keeps feeding. Yeah. So you did something which was pretty amazing. You placed first in your age group in your recent race, right?
Correct.
Yeah. And so you qualified for Kona.
Correct.
Again. This is the second time for Kona?
The second time I'm going, it'll be the sixth time I qualified.
Wow. Wow. Okay, so tell me a little bit about this. Why Kona? Why did you choose to do that?
That is so great. So, to back up a little bit, Ironman for me is a 2.4 mile swim, 112 mile bike, and then a 26.2 mile run. It just sounds crazy. It sounds like something that you cannot do. That has always been appealing to me, the idea of pushing myself to the limit, finding what it is I truly can and cannot do. So for me, that's an expression of like being able to overcome what you once thought was impossible. And Kona is the epitome of that. It's the World Championships. It's where everybody that does Ironman ultimately wants to go or would love to be there. Kona, they call it just Kona, Ironman World Championships. It first started in 1978. That's how Ironman started, in 1978. And a bunch of guys were arguing, like, what's harder? A swim, about 2.4 miles, this 112 mile bike around the island, and at that time it wasn't on Kona, it was on a different island, and or the run, right? The marathon. They're like, I don't know. So 26 people started, and I think like 14 or whatever finished. This was actually the 40th anniversary this year.
Oh, is it really?
Of Kona. It just happened last week.
Wow.
So it's where it's all started. And Kona is such a unique race. So number one, qualification. It's very challenging to get into that race.
Okay.
So a lot of people might try and will never succeed. They say it's statistically harder to get into Kona than it is to get into Harvard.
Oh wow!
So from like a statistic standpoint, it's just like you have to be able to do something that not only is seemingly impossible, but better than all these other people, all these other crazy people out there.
So it's like the elite.
Correct. Now I'm just age group, right?
Yeah.
So I'm an age grouper, and there's pros that do this race as well.
Yeah.
So I will race on the elite age group side, and there's also pros that are much more gifted than I am. So Kona then, to me, represents where it started, and I've been there before. And it's always been one of those things where I want to go back. So the first time I went, I was able to finish. That was the goal. I want to see what I can truly do there against the best in the world on the most harsh conditions. So Kona starts around 82 to 86 degrees. It starts with an open water swim with lots of chop. There's thousands of people nearby that you're colliding with, right? And then it's seawater, obviously, so the salt is digging into your skin. You get off.
It's probably drier too, and
it's actually humid.
Is it more humid?
Yeah, so it's super humid there. And then,
but does it dehydrate you more because of the seawater?
Yeah, absolutely. So then you get out and you start, and of course, I'm gonna go back one step. All these animal life is there too.
Yeah.
So sometimes like a jellyfish might emerge. The person that won overall, her name is Daniela Rife. She actually just beat the course record by like 40 minutes this year. Annihilated it. She got stung by 2 jellyfish. And inside that, she was thinking to herself, oh my gosh, I'm not going to finish. How am I going to finish this race?
Yeah.
I can't even move. She's like, but I can't quit.
Yeah.
I just can't quit because what am I going to show all my fans? What am I going to show all these kids?
Yeah.
I have to at least get through the race.
Yeah.
And then she never believed she was actually going to finish until after she did it. She annihilated by 40 minutes.
My gosh.
So you have that to deal with, right?
Yeah.
Then once you get onto the course, it's a bike ride, of course, the length of it, but it's obviously really hot. Well, those 80, 85, 88 degree temperatures actually start to increase as you get out into the lava fields.
Yeah.
It's completely black, so the heat's coming up from underneath the bike.
Yep.
And the winds are ferocious. And they're unpredictable. So they'll come off the coast, they'll come off the mountains, they'll come off the volcanoes. They're just swirling around you all the time. They might say, hey, it's only going to be a 5-mile-an-hour wind, and then all of a sudden it's 30 miles in your face.
Yeah.
It's insane. So then you go up and over these big hills. You have a 12% or a 12-mile, 6% climb. You turn around and come back. So it's just a challenging race. Some of the course, like some of the spots in the course, are literally 110 to 120 degrees. The first year I did it, I remember I had my hands on my aero bars, so I'm tucked down and the hands are closer
Those
to
are the ones
to
on
the
the
earth.
inside, yeah.
Yeah, they're close, I'm close to the earth. I'm really aero to try to get underneath the wind. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what a rookie mistake. I forgot to put on sunscreen. No, I put on sunscreen. And then I realized that it was actually burning me from the ground up.
Yeah.
Like that's how hot. So it's hot, windy.
Yeah.
And then you run, same thing, and those types of things. So the race, just I was trying to paint that perspective. Is it tests you so much, and you're against the best in the world. Why Kona? For that, I want to go back. Then, it's always been something that we've been able to qualify. My wife and I, Tricia, will look at it, and I'm like, I really want to go back there at some point. We just never invest in it, and we don't have, quote unquote, the means to do it. Mm-hmm. And I don't know about you, but we keep coming across more people that it saddens my heart that are affected by cancer. We've had friends now that are dying from cancer. People that like wake up one morning and they can't do what they thought they could do, like have a heart attack. I mean, just a whole myriad of unfortunate medical issues. Yep. And we looked at each other about 2 years ago, and literally when the World Championships were going on, we're like, you know what? I don't know what we're waiting for. Tomorrow is not promised. Yeah. She's like, you really want to do this, and this means so much to you that we need to go back. Mm-hmm. And that's what's cool about Tricia. She is such an investment. Yep. I can't wait to hear from her. I'm still on the show right now.
Tricia's going to join us here shortly. So
still on the show right now. She is literally half of the reason I would say that I'm able to do what I'm able to do.
Mm-hmm. So when it comes to the goal setting for you, for this, like, this is not small. This is not a small feat. And you talk about the fact that this is the 6th time, right? 8th. Yeah. What you said? 8th.
6th time I've qualified.
Yeah, qualified for it. So just thinking about wrapping your mind around that and what it takes to train and get ready to get there. When did this start for you, and how does all of it work?
Yeah, and this is what I love about this sport. As I alluded to before, for me, it really isn't about Ironman or the triathlon. It's that allows me to test myself the way I want to be tested. It allows that character to be developed, right? So all these things can be applied to anyone's life at any time, which is what's so exciting to me. As I feel like I'm unraveling or unlocking my own code to how I function and how I'm able to carry out other aspects of my life. So for me, goal setting is absolutely instrumental. And I would say that for most high achievers, it's absolutely instrumental, right? It is the number one thing that you can do to make sure that you achieve a goal. First you set the goal, then you see. That's one of my favorite sayings. First you set the goal, then you see, right? So what I always do is if I have an important goal that I want to achieve, I get rid of that vocabulary I just said, I want to. So the first thing I'll do is I am a man who goes under 9 hours at Ironman. I am a man who qualifies for Kona. I am strong enough to qualify. I first tell myself...
You're setting the intention.
Yeah. The only thing you have to be careful with is if you have to believe it. So if you tell yourself lies, your internal psyche, if you will, right? Your subconscious is going to know you're telling lies. Yeah. You have to believe it first, and that's a whole different... We could do a whole podcast on self-efficacy.
Set yourself up for another one.
Self-esteem and that kind of stuff. So first you set the goal, then you see. So I give it to myself in a positive affirmation that I can see. So one thing that I did here, we're at Lifetime Fitness right now, right? Is you can ask any one of these other trainers that are running around. I put it on each and every computer screen. So I would open up my computer screen and it said, I will be here in 2019. Just like these small messages here and there. I put it everywhere. I put it downstairs in what I call my pain cave, quote unquote. It's where I bike and where I go to find inspiration. I have all kinds of different sayings up there. Yeah. But I have my goal up there, so I'll see it, right? I'll put it on my fridge. I'll put it on Facebook. I will tell everybody I come in contact with my goal. I am going to Kona in 2019. I am re-qualifying at Ironman Chattanooga for Kona. Yeah. So that's the first step. So the goal setting. The second thing that is vital, if not more vital and even more powerful, is visualization. Now, this is not dreaming. This is not to be confused with like somehow casting out a vision that's not going to happen, right?
Yeah.
So you want to make sure you visualize multiple outcomes. The outcome, though, that I visualize the most is the one that I want to happen.
Yeah.
Because your brain cannot differentiate the difference between what is real and what is not. In other words, your reality is like your reality, duh, right?
Yeah.
So what you believe, what you see, what you visualize, you tend to move towards all the time. What you think about most often, these are all quotes people heard, like, what you think about most often, you tend to achieve or you tend to go towards.
Yeah.
So that's what I do, is I will start in every single session. About a year ago, I started visualizing myself in every activity I did: swimming, biking, running. I put myself on a swim course. I put myself on a bike course. How do I want to feel? What does my body look like? Right? What does the course look like? I'll do a recon of it on the internet and look at different places so I know what it looks like.
You're planning it out.
Yeah. I know the elevation. I know the turns.
It's a very strategic way to approach it. Yeah.
I'll know the run course. I'll actually, both the run and the bike course, I'll start to simulate, however you want to put it, that course to make sure that I'm exactly trained for that environment. And I'll do that on purpose.
This is what I think is interesting about that is, and I believe you and I have talked about this before, is when you set a goal, you got to make sure that you're specific about what that goal is. It's almost like a roadmap. And what you're talking about is like all these things that you're looking at, what does the course look like? What's the elevation? How does the elevation change throughout the course? So you kind of understand. That roadmap is the buildup of all those things. That's one of those things that you do to help you get to that end goal. It makes you much more successful versus if you say, I'm going to go to Kona, and you don't train at all for it, and then you try to go do it, and you try to go do a marathon or a triathlon or whatever. Chances are you're not going to be successful if you don't do all that prep work. And I think that's what you're saying is that it takes planning to make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So there's motivation.
Yeah.
So motivation, it's really easy to hit that register button. Well, it's not because it costs a lot of money.
Yeah. It does.
Once you get over that,
these events aren't cheap.
Right? So you press that button and then you're like, yes, I'm in. And 1 month later, maybe you're not. And sometimes that's okay to like reevaluate your goal every once in a while and find out why if you're still motivated or not motivated. Sometimes it's because maybe you skipped stages of change. Maybe you went from like contemplation, so pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, right, action, and then maintenance, which doesn't really work too well in this model. Maybe you're not prepping right. Like maybe you didn't set yourself up right mentally to be able to achieve what you thought you were going to.
Yeah.
And visualization is key. So I do it during the session. I do it while I'm working out. And then when I'm not, I will visualize myself crossing the finish line. So this is probably the most dynamic part of visualization, and I believe the most dynamic thing you can do in any goal. If you truly believe that you are going to achieve it, which is the first step, the second thing you do is you put yourself in that environment all the time.
Yeah.
Right? How are you going to feel when you cross the finish line? What's it going to look like? Who's the first person you're going to talk to? What are you going to say? When you come home, how's it going to feel? Like, you put your, like, you see, I saw sub 9 on the clock.
Yeah.
I saw everything that I needed to do in order to make myself successful. I even put on my calendar Kona celebration. I invited my friends. Whenever I came back, we went out for beers later.
So you had it all planned out.
Right?
Yeah.
So my brain, therefore, didn't know the difference that either I'm going or I'm not.
Yeah.
However, you have to be able to deal with adversity in the race. And this is all for naught if you don't set yourself up to do that.
Yeah.
And we'll get to that part.
Yeah.
The biggest challenge becomes, again, ensuring that your reality is real enough that you can achieve it. Because if you don't think that, it's not going to pull you forward. It'll actually destroy you during the goal process or whenever you're trying to do it. Yeah. Because it doesn't seem like a reality.
So what you're talking about is you got to be honest with yourself.
Very honest.
Yeah.
Good way of putting it.
Yeah. And then it's in the honesty perspective is understanding how much work do you have to do to actually get to where you want to where your intention is set, right?
Absolutely.
Because it's not saying that not everybody's capable of doing a triathlon, but it's be honest with where you're starting. Where are you at? Are you at the Josh Wolf stage in comparison to the starting line, or are you clear back at 0?
Sure. Right.
So I think what you're trying to say is that's where that's at is the honesty with where are you starting at, and then the intention piece behind you're setting that intention. These things that you're setting up. I think this is pretty cool because I tend to do some of the same things rather than just saying, hey, I'm going to go do this challenge next year. You're setting up these mile markers in there, right? And you got a mile marker even afterwards. You're doing a celebration. You're setting up in your mind. You're thinking about it's going to be sub 9 when I cross that finish line, right?
Yeah.
There's things that you did that helped you get there. Setting those goals, those intentions, those visualizations. In my mind, I would be like, well, I better not fail at this because I've got all this stuff set up. I already paid that registration. It's time to get some work in.
Yeah.
Right. So I think it's pretty cool that you did that because I think it's unique. I don't think a lot of people do it that way, but I think that's kind of a similarity you and I have where I'm like, yes, I like that. I like to hear that you did that because it's awesome.
Absolutely.
Right. Because to me, in my mind, the mentality behind that is you better not fail. You better give it everything you got.
Sure. And there is like the processing of that, like your cerebrum is going to go through and say, yes, this is exactly what I need to do. I don't want to fail. And then there's a subconscious level, which is what I'm trying to get at. So for me, I play different games in my head. Mm-hmm. For me, it's not a guilt thing. It literally is more of like I'll share with you how that looks, but it's more of finding different ways that are motivating for me to like completely pull me up in a positive direction.
Yeah.
And that's something I really did this year is worked on my energy levels, like specifically like where am I spending energy, how do I want that energy to feel, how do I want it to come across, and I'll get to that. The point for me is like the subconscious thing, and I don't know if you've noticed, but I haven't said a word about bike miles or run miles or whatnot. Yeah. That's kind of the entry fee, and to me, the psychology, it trumps the physiology. So physiology is secondary, right? Yeah. The psychology, if your mind isn't there, I don't care how fit you are, you will give up in an Ironman. Yeah. Ironman is not about who is the fastest, it's who doesn't slow down the most. Yeah. And that tends to be why I do well.
Yeah, you talk, and that's something that when we did the Finding Your Endurance episode with you, that's something that really stuck with me is your mentality of one more step. Right, we even use that sometimes when we train is, hey, you got one more in you, right? Because you were talking about the race that you did quite a while back, where you wanted to quit. You were like just mentally fatigued, but you finished the race. Like you wanted to be done. Like I think it was you were getting to your bike portion or something like that.
Yeah, everything was cramping.
Yeah, and you were cramping, and there's all these things going on, and I think that mental toughness. Like what you're saying is you got to work on being mentally tough. Yeah. Being able to put up, there's adversities that you're going to face in this, whether it's getting stung by a jellyfish or you get a flat tire or you start cramping or whatever. Yeah. Right? Like you don't know what's going to happen, but you got to prepare yourself to take it on when it does because it comes with it. Right? And that's the difference in, who finishes and who doesn't. Who does well and who doesn't, right? It's that ability to mentally be able to put up with whatever you're going to face.
Right. I'm adamantly like nodding my head. Absolutely, right?
Yeah, you are.
And I'm so glad you brought that up as I thought about that race at a certain point in my last race, and it helped drive me. I'm like, you don't feel nearly as bad as you did there. Yeah. And you're running so much better. Yeah. So that's another point that I really would love to hit home. And that's of like your experience and how we process that is up to us. And that is ultimately, I think, what life is about, is deciding how you want to perceive your reality. And only when you do that, I feel like, can you be in control of your thoughts, which will eventually be in control of your emotions, your actions, your life, right?
That's what will dictate everything else.
Yeah. Right, absolutely. So to put that into like a real life scenario, not just this like hypothetical blue. Yeah. For me, like I had a race in Steelhead. It was a half of an Ironman, and all kinds of issues happened. I mean, when you get into it, the swim was awful. The bike, I got a biking penalty. Yeah. The run, my shoes, I had to take them off at one point and mess with them. I lost so much time. It just wasn't the race I really wanted. And I explained it, and I got challenged on it a little bit, that it was a race that I needed. What I would like to say about that, what that means to me, is that because of that race, I was able to reframe some thoughts, and I was able to look at myself from a 10,000 foot view and say, okay, you were getting really angry during those times. What happens if this happens? If you get angry because you get a biking penalty, it's not going to matter, even if it's right or wrong, which I still think was wrong. Like, it doesn't matter because you're expending your energy. I'm giving it away to something that ultimately is out of my control.
You have a choice. You have a choice in how to use it.
I have a choice. So that helped me that day, because every single thing, I chose where I put my energy. I chose it. It was so neat because I felt so strong, and I was just focused entirely on the task. Process oriented, right? And then I was able to check my energy, and then the outcome happens. Which is another.
So you were kind of monitoring yourself. I think that's a good point to make too. Is you think about, it's easy to get ticked off when something doesn't go your way, and
it's all the time.
And well, it's life, right? But what you're talking about is you're making an active choice to be like, you know what, that's not a good use of my energy. I still got to finish this race, right? So let's plug this in somewhere else, somewhere positive, and keep going. So So my question in that is what do you do in that moment? Like you talk about, are you reframing it into something else?
Yes, that's really good. So because motivation is just like our own physical energy; it will wane, and we only have so much to give. And there's actually some really good science out there that shows you that. So what do I do in the moments where like I'm confronted by some thoughts that aren't very that I don't really like, right? So to go to the race, I was running, and I'd like to describe some of the race. I was running, and there's a point at which my mind went, I don't know if you're going to qualify. And that's okay. Like, you're giving it your best effort. Like, that's okay. So the first thing that I do in that situation is I don't want that thought. Like, whatever that is, you can call it an unwanted thought. You can call it a thought that's outside of you. We all have them, right? Your body's screaming, right? If you're having a bad day, somebody cuts you off, your dog pooped all over the floor. I don't know. You're not getting your money in your bank account. Your car's broken. I mean, all these things are happening, and then like something else happens, and you have that choice to decide how you want to internalize it. And I am, I want to admit that I am still a work in progress on that, especially day to day. I'm getting better, and I'm getting a lot better within the context of my sports. And so what I'll have to do then is to say, okay, this is not me. So the thought was not me, right? I don't believe that. It's not within my mission. It's not with my goals. It doesn't belong to me. Okay, so what is it? Why am I feeling that way? I'm tired. I'm dehydrated. Okay, you're dehydrated. You can fix that. Stop and drink some more water. Right? There's something going on to make that happen. So the thought is a thought. It does not define you. Our thoughts don't define us. Our emotions don't define us, right? So the only thing that defines us is basically how we want the action, like how we want the outcome to happen, right? So
what you're talking about is what is within your control.
Pretty much.
Right? In that moment, you're like, I'm dehydrated. Drink some water.
Right. So find what the problem is. So there's a reason why that's happening. There's a reason your thought is doing that. In real life, maybe you're stressed. Maybe you feel slighted. Maybe you feel like there's an ego thing here. Like I feel like you're attacking my ego. Like why are you having that reaction? And then once you figure that out, is this truly how I want to feel? If not, then what can I do right now to change it? You know what I mean? So in the race, I seriously drank more water, and then that helps. And then sometimes you can grab external motivations or external. What do you call that? External motivators. So you can draw on the crowd. I can go back to the systems. So for me, the process, I'll go back to just relax. Maybe I'm stressing myself out. Maybe I haven't peed for a while. Maybe I'm low on calories. Right. So I just go back to the process. Heart rate. Maybe my heart rate's too high. There's
things you can do to breathe and help lower that too. I remember you talking about like your race too. There was that one race. You talked about how external motivators, a good example of that was, you knew Trish was going to be down there, and you knew you just had to see her face, so you kept going. Right. So it helps to have that and we'll talk about the community perspective too, because there's
huge.
a community that helps support you and you support them very, very well. But it's, in that preparation for that race, all the things that you're doing to build it to that point, the goals or the intentions, the milestones, get some people to support you too. I mean, and that could be your mom, it could be your little brother, it could be your kids, it could be your wife, it could be your dog, it could be whatnot. But that community perspective does help.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then when those moments come along, make sure those are people that aren't going to jump on the "oh, woe is me" wagon. It's, come on, Josh, you got this. Isn't this? It could be worse. Right. You got it. You got to keep going. Right. Because that helps too.
Not to interrupt you.
No, you're good.
Or finding people that will speak the truth to you.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Is you want people who are going to be honest.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what that looks like outside, like with Ironman, but like literally, I had a friend that was talking to me. He's one of my best friends, Peter. We were talking about the race beforehand, and he said, Kona is like, it represents you. You belong. Yeah. You have to go back.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking about not going back again. You have to go back.
Yeah.
So speaking the truth to you, like that. I think if you have a community that does that, it's huge.
However harsh it might seem at times, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
well, respectfully.
Yeah, it's gotta be respectful, but it's I've had some good friends in that perspective too that have been like, I'll be like, man, this stinks because this didn't happen. I didn't hit my VO2's not higher this year, and it's like, well, but Audrey, really, what have you done to change it?
To try to change it,
right? Or and I'll tell you, and I consider my coach Adam, he's a very good friend. He's like, that's why I told you to get off the bike the other day, right? Is you need to push yourself past where you were comfortable before.
Yep.
You got to keep working at it. So you need to be not just honest with yourself, but you need people, your collective community needs to be honest too, and having those people that can share that.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tricia, has been such a great advocate for me too. Mm-hmm. And that's, I think, one of the biggest things that I need to be able to share is whenever you're doing this, whenever you do anything that's big, anything that is really important to you, whoever the person in your life is that you are closest to, I highly, highly recommend, if not like mandate, this is pretty strong verbiage, to sit down with them and say, this is very important to me. Like, number one, communicate, and this is kind of why, this is how I think I see things. This is what I'm going to be doing this year. What are your thoughts?
Yeah.
And then that's the first step. And then the second thing is listen to that person. Like, they're your voice of reason. Yeah. So Tricia has been just such an advocate over this entire process for me, and will tell me, what are you doing? You need to take a day off, or you know what? It's okay. Run to church. I'll get the boys there for us, and we'll make it work. Like, when she is like the most supportive person that I know of, and I know a lot of spouses, and that helps because I really truly believe it's us.
You guys are a team.
Yes, and I would not be nearly successful if it weren't for her. And it's not just because of what she does to allow me to get there, it's what she does when I do get there. Like, she comes with me and she like invests in the process. I know exactly where she's going to be. We do this together. We course recon together. She's like, okay, I'm going to be at mile 44 and off the bike and mile 90. I'm going to stand here. And this is what I'm going to be wearing. Part of this because over the time, like, I'll forget, I won't see her. But then I know, right? And I know to expect her, and I look forward to those moments, and I get a piece of energy for that. And I keep talking about that energy word because, like, it is absolutely imperative that you have it throughout the day, because it will wane, right? So any speck of energy that I can pull, I'll take and I'll give.
So have you ever ran into situations where there's been negative energy that you've had to, like, not from you but coming from outside?
Well, absolutely. I mean, that's part of our world, unfortunately, is we live in a world that just emits negative energy, and that's not meant to sound negative. It's just the truth, right? It's just the truth.
It'll be anywhere.
So absolutely, you have to decide again, what is my belief system? How am I going to deal with this? And how
is it outside of my control?
How I overcome it? For triathlon, I'm struggling a little bit to look at things that would like really negatively affect me from outside. Sometimes it might pull from me. So like if I have a conflict with someone, or I'm very empathetic. I very much want to help as many people as possible, and I invest. So when that happens, if I have a conflict, it will rob me of energy. That's my fault.
That's a whole nother topic. But I agree. You're 100% a giver. Like you're one of those people that you give versus like you don't fall in the middle. I would put you in the middle, and you're definitely not a taker. You're definitely a giver, and I think that shows. And that's another way that energy can be sapped.
Exactly.
But I could see how if there was a conflict or something, which I would have a really hard time thinking that you'd have a conflict with anybody.
Everybody has conflict.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like even with a fellow competitor or whatnot. But that you can choose where you put your energy. It goes back to that whole.
But I will let it fester sometimes to the point where it's unhealthy.
Yeah.
And that's part of the way that my brain has been trained over the years. Like when I go back to when I was very, very depressed and all the types of things, there's a reason it was because my framework wasn't properly built. Yep. There's also the emotional component, and you could say that there's a physiological, problem with the brain, serotonin, dopamine, all that stuff, right? Yeah, of course. When I go back though, and I look at the way that my, I want to find the right word, my roots have been brought, like the neurotransmitters in my brain have been wired, like the root of it, in my opinion, is rooted incorrectly, and it will root, and I will go towards the negative 9 times out of 10 unless I intervene. So I have to stop it.
You have to actively.
I have to actively stop it, and it does not happen all the time.
Yeah.
So
I think it's normal. I think it's normal. I think it happens.
Right. No. So you're asking
I do too, yeah.
where does what would be a negative source of energy for me? That would be it.
Yeah.
Because I let it hit me so hard, and I get so invested, and it hurts so much. And if I'm not careful, I'll wallow and just like self-pity and get in that motion. I will eventually, very quickly now, check it. Yeah. So sometimes it might take 4 or 5 hours. Sometimes it's within an hour. Sometimes within minutes. Yeah. And once I find it, I'm like, okay, no, we're not doing this. So I'll reverse it, and that's another episode. I'll reverse it and then go back to where I need to be.
Yeah. Get yourself reframed and where you need to be, and understand, is it helpful? No. Then don't give it any of your energy, and then it's how, or in some situations what I've done is how can I use this?
Sure.
Right? Like how can I use it in a positive way that will help me? If I can't, then it's just move on, keep going, right? Like there's much bigger things to work towards.
There's a great book. It's called How to Not Give an F, right?
I've heard of that one,
Yeah. And I really like that, because basically it tells you only have so many Fs to give. You only have so much time, energy to give.
Yeah.
So you choose what you really care about, because once you've given enough Fs, you won't be able to give the F about the stuff that matters.
Yeah.
So that really hit home with me, and I like that principle.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I'll start, is like, do I really care? Yes, no. Like, do I really care about this thing right now? Is it that important? If it's yes, then that's okay.
Yeah.
Then I need to go back and work on it.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to go to somebody and say, this is how I'm feeling, how are you feeling? Blah, 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 blah. Anyway, so that's what, that's
No, I think that's cool. Do you remember who that book's by?
Matt Mason?
We can
I think so, Matt Mason.
Yeah, we'll put it in the show notes so people can look at it.
It's a good one.
I think it's a good one, definitely. I appreciate you going through and kind of helping break down the difference in like how you can use that energy and what's useful and what's not, and then how do you reframe it. Because I think it's important, because as we talk about the race and talk about the obstacles that you hit throughout a race, not knowing what it is or what you're going to hit, I think it's good to understand that these tools that you're talking about are things that you can use to help anybody, whether you're a competitor or you're just someone who's just getting started or whatnot on your own fitness journey.
That's my true desire.
I know it is. I think it's great. Okay, so high level, talk to me about what it takes to train for the Ironman, because this is not an easy feat for you to take on, and we'll get Tricia's perspective here in a few minutes when she gets here.
Yeah.
Break this down for me. Help me understand it. Help our listeners understand it.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's critical to start early. So if you are just getting into the sport, the Ironman is going to seem a little bit different. So it's a smaller build. in any case, you're going to start with 8 to 10 hours of exercise a week and end with upwards of 16 to 20 for amateur level, elite amateur level. If you're a pro, you're in the neighborhood of 30 to 35 hours per week. And those are periodized. So there's an up and down thing to it, right? So you'll have like a stair-step ladder where you'll go up a little bit in duration, intensity, which would be volume. So duration and intensity and frequency would make your volume, and you can manipulate that. So your volume is going to increase, so your volume will go up, and it'll come back down. It'll go up, it'll do that over a series of weeks and months and years, and there's all the science to that, which who cares? I care, but we don't need to get into it.
I think it's cool. I think we had Coach Drake went through and helped us understand what periodization was a while back. So I think it's interesting. It is because I think even I had the perspective when it came to training for something like this. I was like, well, so you always run and ride and swim that much?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah,
right.
And then you'll break it up, right?
Yeah.
So you'll swim a little bit, like 3 or 4 or 5 times a week. Sounds like a big window. It's just for me, I'll swim 5 times a week, and I'll bike like 5 to 6 times a week, and I'll run off the bike, which we call bricks. That's critical. And then I'll run, 3 to 4 to 5 times a week, depending on what I'm doing. And I'll lift. I'll do yoga, invest in massage. I'll do everything that I can to recover, right? So there's a lot going on within that space that we could talk about. The things that are just like high and like really important things to consider is like, first, recovery is what matters. So it doesn't matter how much intensity, volume, duration, how much swimming, biking, running you're doing if you're not recovering from it. So maybe you're a person that needs to back it off to recover more, and that's okay. Because it doesn't matter like how fit you are during the freaking training. It matters how fit you are when you show up to race.
The day of the race,
right? And showing up injury free. I just ran the half marathon this morning. I was being a goof. I had my Instagram going. Follow me at Coach J Wolf.
I saw it.
Yeah. And when I was doing it, I would interview people, and I found Bob Schlegel, 10-time Ironman Kona finisher. He's won his age group there like multiple times. Wow. Just a legend in the sport. I'm like, Bob, it's good to see you. Like, what does it take to train for something like this? He's like, well, the most important thing is to show up to the start line. In other words, show up healthy. So if you can't do that, training doesn't matter. Recovery is critical, right? So you have to sleep. You have to plan that. You have to plan your meals. You have to make sure you're getting enough nutrition in the right amounts. You have to like foam roll. You have to stretch, right? That is such an important aspect of it. Okay, there's that. The second is it's not swimming and biking and running. It's swimming, biking, then running together. So you could be a really good swimmer and or a really good biker and or a good runner. Or maybe you're just doing those events singularly, like outside of each other, and then you suck on race day because you haven't put them together. Now, you don't put them together all the time. You got to
put the pieces together,
So very rarely, is it the first swimmer out of the water? Is it the first biker off the bike? Is it the first person that runs the fastest in the run? It's usually the person that did all of those at a high level, but not like all like the best level, So that's kind of another thing that we have to talk about.
No, I think it's really cool, and I think it's interesting that you talk about that perspective. So my husband, I was telling you about this. He did his very first sprint ever, and and I remember seeing him come out of the water. He looked totally just defeated when he realized he had to go do the bike, and then he had to go do the run. And so a sprint is, what is it? The swim was
about 500.
Yeah, it's 500. I think the bike was
9 to 11.
11 miles, and the run was, I think, a 3-mile run.
Yeah, that would be right.
Yeah, and he, I remember seeing that look on his face, and I remember him appreciating, later on we talked about this, is the fact that when he trained for this, he didn't just do those things singularly. Right? He didn't do them in isolation. He had to force to push them together, and he said that kind of helped him. Plus, we talk about the perspective of having someone standing along the route. We're all sitting there cheering for him, and we're like seeing our faces and us cheering him on helped him too. But I think it's important to remember that those are each individual like Legos, and you got to stack them all on top of each other to make it work. Otherwise, like you said, day of the race, don't be surprised if you don't do as well as you want to do.
Absolutely.
Right, because it's an endurance sport.
Right. And it's an end of all three. And I'm so excited because we're going to get Tricia's perspective on what it takes to train for an Ironman. Because like as a spouse, it's a totally different perspective, and it's a great perspective.
That's what I'm excited about.
I know. So we're going to hear from her just after I say one more thing. So the third thing that I wanted to say is also like finding your strengths and acknowledging where you might need some improvement. So you might call it a weakness or area of opportunity. So if you're a really, really good swimmer, you can use that to your advantage to get ahead and do what you need to do to get out on the bike or whatever. So during training then, you optimize that and work on your weaknesses as well to be able to try to overcome or compensate for that. And then you can decide energy-wise where you want to place your energy in training and on race day.
Yeah. So what you're talking about is, and I know I've heard the mentality too is understand where your opportunities for improvement are, but also understand where you're strong, right?
Yeah.
Is you might be a faster swimmer than you are a runner, right? Or you might be able to make your time up on your bike because you're really good on a bike.
Or something of that nature.
Right. So it's understanding where do I, like, overall you got to train for the whole thing, but it's understanding, okay, I'm maybe not the best swimmer this year, something I can continue to work on, but I could always catch up on my bike or the run.
I absolutely agree. Or you decide you want to invest in like a coach or something like that.
We're going to get to that.
I'm just saying, or whatever it is to overcome some of those things. Or you go online, you look at drills, or you spend more time in the off season doing that type of stuff.
Yeah. Okay, so Trish just joined us. Trish, from your perspective, I want to talk about what does it take to get ready for a sport like this? So
for the athlete or for the spouse?
Both. Yeah.
I mean, you obviously both people have to be on board 100%, and I don't know what you've talked about already, so sorry.
No, he hit that. But you're good.
We kind of jokingly, but also, I mean, it is a serious thing when someone decides they want to do an Ironman. We say, okay, you have to have the what to expect when you're training for an Ironman talk with the two of us, and so we
make a book.
Go. I know
we should. Oh my gosh.
Because we don't have enough ideas of things we want to do now. Add it to the bucket list. But really, we want people to understand what it is, and especially those people who have done, I heard you talking about a sprint or an Olympic or even the half, they think it's just going to be a little bit more than that, and it is exponentially more. And so both people need to understand that and be on board, because it's a lot of time away. And Josh is really fortunate that he does this for a living, and so a lot of his training is done just by nature of during his work day, so to speak. It's really important for people who they work during the week and they're going to be doing a 4, 6, 7 hour bike ride on Saturday and a 1, 2, 3 hour run on Sunday. It's just one of those things where it's really easy for the other person to start to, build resentment when that person is gone so long if you're not both on board. So that's the first thing, is I think just understanding really what the time commitment is for both people. I think even people who are training have underestimated how much that's going to take out of their life.
They don't realize, right? And impact. It's not just the time; it's the lack of time with the spouse or the family. Right.
And even after as many times as we've done it, and even after, that this is, again, what he does for a living, there are times when, when we're on vacation and he has to go to bed at 9 o'clock because he has to get up and get his training in, or he doesn't want to go out to this, group event because of, what he's eating or not eating or drinking or not drinking, and, what time he has to get up and the training he has ahead of him. And so it does impact things that way. I do remember one season where I felt, well, can't you race like in May and then we have the rest of the summer?
I really want to get a hamburger.
Right. And he did Ironman Texas in 2014. So then he was training in the cold weather, and he has adapted and does training rides in the basement or while watching a movie with the family or something like that. So
I think it's cool.
Try to involve everyone more often.
So
communicate.
Take the kids. So our son is actually here right now running 3 miles on the treadmill. He wants to work up to being able to run 5K for the Thanksgiving Day. Yeah. So there are such positive impacts too. There's great things. So
Trish, from your perspective, tell me a little bit, because you guys have been together for quite a while, right? Mm-hmm. How many years?
We've been married for it'll be 7 in February.
Oh wow! So talk to me about how this has evolved for you two as a spouse throughout this journey with him. Like, what has it been like from the very beginning to today, and what's changed for you?
I mean, in the beginning and still now, it's like I'm a very emotional person anyway. Mm-hmm. It's just my personality.
That's all right,
watching him race is the best feeling ever. So, as much as there'll be things that are difficult about it, I love race day and I can't wait. I always say I spectate like he races. I prepare, I look at the map, I know where I'm going to be. We talk about, okay, this is going to be a good spot because you're coming up the hill. So
I know this is going to be hard.
I've learned, after watching the first time, would be like, oh, here he comes. Yeah. There he goes. And I have like a picture of his backside. There's Josh's butt racing. So I've learned, where to be. But so that in a good way, that has not changed. Mm-hmm. Just when I watched his first half Iron, well, I guess I was there at the end of your first half Ironman, but the first time I watched him race the entire half Ironman, I was just so caught up in everything, and I loved it. But I think about that now. He swam, and when he got on the bike, I went back to the hotel room, and I showered, and I got ready, and then I waited for him to get off the bike, and then he was running, and so that is really different. Because then when he did his first full Ironman in 2009, we had friends come with us, and again, I kind of thought I'd do the same thing. I mean, honestly, my first thought was, what am I going to do for 10 and a half hours while he's racing? And I kind of thought the same thing, but we ended up staying out on the course all day, and his friend that came with us is an engineer, so Paul is really the master spectator. He was the one that taught, looked at the map and said, well, let's go here, and now we can bump over here, and well, if we drive out here, there won't be anyone there, and that will be really encouraging to him.
Be a good spot.
And we were out there all day long, and it was such a great thing. So
I think it's funny because I think it's interesting because I don't think people, when it comes to meaningful support, I think what you're talking about is that's what that is. So I'll compare it to my son. Just started doing cross country this year, and he loved it. There's a difference, I think, in how you can be a meaningful supporter, and that's what you're doing. You don't realize you maybe might have to train as much as they do, at least cardiovascular wise, to keep up with it. Because that was the thing that Josh
in Louisville, I did a half marathon, chasing him around. I was teasing him like, I am exhausted. This was a long day.
That was the race for you. For me, I'm tired.
You have water and nutrition and aid stations. I got nothing except my
smiling face.
So I think, and during that time we were dating, and so. I do know that once we got married, there was a definite difference of, okay, now we do have, at the time, young kids, and kind of how do we balance that, and I think he would say too, I mean, I'd be interested to hear your change, because, the 2010, he was very focused. That was when he had the goal of qualifying for Ironman. He'd actually qualified at the first race and didn't take the spot because that was not his plan. So 2010, he knew he was planning on it for 2011, and he was so laser focused, and that's something that I admire, but was also interfering in our life at that time. So laser focused that it was all encompassing, and nothing else got in the way of training.
It was train. So if you could give some advice, right? Because there's a lot of people that look up to both of you right now. Because it's amazing what you guys have done together. And I really truly mean that, because it takes both of you together to make this work, plus your family, your boys.
And the village.
Oh, absolutely.
What does it take to get that reframed and refocused in the right way for you guys? Like, what would be some advice for you for someone who is, my husband just started doing this, or my wife just started doing this. Our life is literally triathlon 24/7.
one thing that I think has been really great about being here, and I'm really not trying to, plug the join the team, get a coach, but really it truly is the tri-team, the Wolfpack, if you will. Yeah. That is something that has changed. We talked about that actually when we just were in Chattanooga. My mom had said, I just can't imagine, what about the people who come here and they don't have this and they're just here out by themselves? How do they know what to do? Yeah. And I said, well, that was us in 2009. Yeah. Josh didn't know anybody, and he just decided to do this thing, and he, read a book for his plan, and we didn't know anyone, and we went and we did it. But that is so different going with your team that's there supporting you. And it really becomes, for better or worse, your social circle too. Yeah. And so I think for the spouse, if the person training is also involved in this, then the spouse also gets to know those of us that are spectators. And when you're going to spend the whole day with them, it's really nice. Yeah. But also during the training season, if hey, my husband or my wife is out doing this 6-hour bike ride, and so are you, there might be opportunities for you to do things together, especially if you have kids, to say, hey, do you want to get the kids together this day, and make it something, or like we've talked about when he's doing a run, now our kids ride their bike next to him, just talking about what are some ways that the kids at your ages can be involved. Obviously when they're a little older, that's easier, but maybe when they're swimming laps, you can all go to the pool. Maybe when, like I said, when they're on the bike ride, just like when you're on the race, maybe you meet them at some point and take them water and see how they're doing, and
finding ways to get involved. Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so that would be my biggest thing is and obviously communication is big no matter what we're talking about, triathlon or anything. But just really, once a week sitting down and kind of mapping out, okay, this is what I have this week. What's important to our family, and let's get that on the calendar first. Yep. Now how can I work my training in instead of the other way around? Yeah. Because I think the natural inclination is to sit down and say, well, I have training. this, and that, and then trying to make things fit in. But I think if you go about it the other way and say, hey, who has a dance recital this week? Who has basketball games? Who has baseball games? Who has a Christmas program? And those things first, and then say, okay, based on that, I'm going to train here, instead of, well, it's better for me to get up and train at this time and be gone until noon.
So what you're talking about too is in order to make it really truly balanced, is the communication piece, but it's also understanding that the person training is also got to be flexible too, right? Because the ultimate result, if you're not, is that resentment piece, where there could be some resentment if you're not communicating and everybody else has got to revolve their schedule around you and whatnot. And that's what you guys don't want to see happen too.
No, absolutely. I'd like to just do like a 1-minute reflection on what she said too. That being hyper-focused on in Wisconsin not only was impacting our family negatively, but ultimately impacted my race negatively too. We were talking about energy, right? You only have so much energy to give. I gave way too much energy in one sector, and the other energy part of my life was unbalanced, right? So therefore, like, what am I really drawing on? What am I doing? Who am I? Yeah. That type of stuff. So that's one thing. Another thing that she said that I thought was really cool was she talked about the community that you train with becomes your social circle. One thing that we've been really intentional about is making sure spouses get to know each other. Yeah. Because that we found that it's so much more fun, and I'll integrate them into like messenger chats and whatnot, because then they're part of it, right? Yeah. And they're not in the dark. They're like, what is this person doing with that, that other guy or that girl that are always training together? Yeah. Oh, it's so-and-so, it doesn't matter.
Get to know the people.
Yeah.
I think also the important to point out too is, she's talking about, as a spouse supporting an athlete, is make the effort to also get to know those people too, right? Because it's a community that's there to help support each other, and it's only going to get stronger if you try to do things actively to help build that, whether it's, hey, let's go take the kids out for lunch, or let's go swimming together or whatnot, go take them to the park. That can make a big difference, right? And it's understanding it's the power of we, not the power of I, right? And that's what you're talking about. And that power of we is you're getting to know some of the gals on the team, and now because of that, you've probably known some of these people for quite some time.
A long time,
right?
And they've become really good friends.
Yeah, someone that you would call if you're like, hey, You won't believe what Josh did this week.
Well, I would never do that.
Never. So, Tricia, is there anything else that you want to add as far as, where you are today in that spectrum, or from your perspective that you think is important for our listeners to hear?
I know it's hard to think off the top of my head, where that came from. I think more than anything else, and not to pump myself up, I know Josh would agree. I think I realized how crucial my part is. Sometimes I felt like it was just a side benefit or just something that was kind of nice. I now know that it's essential to his racing. I mean, he has told me, and not just to be romantic, that he could not do this without me. And I know that that's the truth. And so it's not just that it's nice that I'm there, that I support him. It's that it's essential to his success. And so I do take it seriously and try to, sometimes I have to think about where he's coming from and know that, okay, kind of reframe something that I might initially react to and think, okay, where's he coming from and how does he mean this? And really be a support instead of being annoyed about something that's going on. Think, okay, what can I do to really support him during this season? Not give him, if he's not going to, do our wine tastings for a couple months, just say, okay, that's fine. It's not a big deal, instead of complaining about, oh, your race makes everything so boring.
Yeah. You never do anything fun. You don't really eat fun stuff. Yeah.
You're the fun hater.
Yeah.
So what she doesn't know is we already said the same words, right?
Yeah. Well, so it's interesting because you're talking about from the perspective of the spouse. We were talking about reframing kind of some of that stuff. Something happens. Maybe Josh didn't get enough sleep one night.
That happens
or even,
quite often.
Yes. Right. Maybe he's a little short because he's tired. If he says something, instead of reacting.
Have you been at our house?
No, you have to understand. I'm also married to a Josh, and I've been there, and he's been there too. I think an honest truth. Some of the things that you guys are talking about, Josh and I have had to realize too as well throughout time, and I think it's cool to me to hear from you guys. You guys are saying some of the same things, and I'm like, been there.
Yeah.
I'm the fun killer right now. We want
That's
pizza.
okay.
Well, but we need pizza. But I think what you're talking about is understanding that many times those things they don't come from a bad place, especially when someone's maybe a little short because they're tired,
right?
Or their knee hurts or something else. It doesn't come from a bad place, and that's what you're saying. Is you're like, maybe if he snaps, because everybody does it. Right.
Well, and even in the last, I would say just this year, something that's changed is I've really tried to see it as he really is the most dedicated athlete I know. And I think that's why he's so successful. So few people are willing to give up those things or make those adjustments, and it is a sacrifice. And so instead of seeing it as a bad thing or, oh, starting this month we don't have any fun anymore because he's getting really serious about training, it's learning from that and being inspired by it instead.
Well, I mean, you talk about your son. He's out here working on running a 5K.
Yeah.
You look at the impact that the things that they've seen their dad do and the way that they see you support him. You guys are raising some really good human beings that are inspired by this. They have a really good example in front of them. In a case that hasn't had life necessarily the easiest, right? Like you've been through hard moments and you've weathered through it, and because of that, I think that is a defining factor in why you are as good as you are. It's because you are mentally tough and you have that support system. I think it's big.
I agree.
Okay, so talk to me about the days leading up to the race, and Trish, you can jump in here at any point.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So basically what I wanted to say around this is I'd love to use this as a platform just to celebrate the team, quite honestly. Because the days leading up to Chattanooga, it's about 11 hours away, approximately. And you get there early, you have to get there early, there's all kinds of stuff that you do. And there's all these things leading up. They canceled the swim. So when you cancel the swim, it's an emotional thing. I was talking a little bit about like the idea of going sub 9 hours. It's just a time goal. once you cancel that swim, that's no longer there. So I just told you I painted a picture for almost 2 years, at least a year, of going underneath that. So I have to like decide how to adjust that, and it was stressful. We had a really close friend. She was actually part of our wedding. She passed away from cancer that Monday. We couldn't be at her funeral. That was that Friday. There's all these things going on around it. And then I have my athletes too, and they, there's 4 new ones that are down there, two other ones that have done Ironman before. And this is their first experience. I feel so bad for them. So there's a bunch of stuff going on around the race, right? So you always have to decide how you want to, again, interpret that, and ultimately I had to grieve it in order to get away from it. And then you're able to move forward. The thing that I really thought was so cool about this race is on all levels, I was full of joy. From the days like Saturday, Sunday, even Monday. And there's so many great things. Aside, of course, I qualified for Kona, right? Aside that I won my age group, which was the goal, to go to Kona, to go back to the second goal. Aside from that was almost not expected, but that was really cool, right? The things that were great and awesome started the day before. We had everybody over at our house, and it was the 4 athletes. We had all of the Wolfpack people that came down there. There was 12 people that came down there. They sacrificed their time from their family, right? They sacrificed their money. They sacrificed everything to come and support the team, right? 12 people. We've never had that before, that type of support system. They came out to this gathering. Okay, so inside that gathering, the 4 athletes were given bags, and they had little notes written on from the team about something that they did this year, something inspiring, whatever it was. And we invited them to share a little bit about their experience along the way. And there were so many impactful things said. And one thing that I just want to highlight was somebody said that, her husband has had friends since high school, or since preschool, that he is just so close with. She's never had that community until now. Because of this, she has the closest friend she's ever had in life. Through blood, sweat, and tears, she's able to do that. There's other stories too. There's like 4 or 5, 6. I'm like, holy cow! Like this is cool. So cool. Like I'm part of something so much bigger than me. I'm part of something that is actually good. You know what I mean? Like I already knew that, but just to hear that and feel their energy, feel how they were feeling, it was more than inspiring. I mean, would you agree?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that you, when you were talking about setting up those milestones along the way that kind of helped you, that's a point that helped kind of generate all this joy.
I never saw that coming. Right? You know what I mean? I just never.
You didn't even know it.
Well, because I always had the plan to have everybody over our house and do a rah-rah-ree moment. But I didn't think it was going to be as like impactful and emotionally invested, and just such a, I don't know, it was greater than anything I ever could have planned or expected.
So race day, talk to me about the race day.
Yeah, race day was great.
I think you got more than that.
Right?
You got more.
I'm looking at Tricia. So race day is always hard. It's where
I think 2 days before race day is always hard, and
that's very true. That was where I fell apart. And she was very kind to my stressfulness.
I think it's not worth mentioning. I think it's important to let people know that, because even though we had tried to plan to not have it be that way, I mean, we came away from that saying, you know what, we need to go the opposite direction. We need to know that 2 days before the race is hard and it is stressful and there's all these things you have to do. And he had this, I think, grandiose idea of, trying to get things done early and having Friday to just chill and relax and hang out together, and that did not happen. And so when it doesn't go according to what you had in your mind, it's disappointing and it's frustrating. And then, like I said, you compile that with Sandy passing away and not being able to be at her funeral, and the swim being canceled, and the athletes being disappointed, and he's trying to be a coach and an athlete at the same time. It was a lot. But I think it's, I always say it's so important to share those moments, to let people know that he is human and it's okay, and you don't have to.
I broke down crying. I broke down crying on Friday, just crying.
Like,
sobbing.
Yeah.
She's like, you need to pull over. I'm like, I'm fine.
It's okay, I got this.
Maybe I should be driving.
So what I hear you saying is she's a good thermometer. She
Oh,
can tell,
absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, she can tell when you need that moment
Yeah.
that you're going through this.
Absolutely.
That's pretty cool. So you were talking about the stress the day of the race. The day of the race, you're up there, you're ready to start.
So, and I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on the race because I feel like it is, unless you're a real triathlete, the nuances are really, really boring. The things that I find that are great takeaways are leading up to it. I had to wait 75 minutes, just the way they ended up doing it. They let certain people go according to their number, and it's a time trial start, which just means that every 5 seconds 2 people are going. So I had to wait forever. My number was at the back. So that's a stressful component or whatever. And
you're anticipating them to start. Yeah.
You just want to go. And are these people going to run into me? Are these people going to do this? Like, what if I get a fly? All these things start going through your head. So once you get going, though, I feel like it's always a lot better. And I was, I did very, very well for the first 40. Everything that I thought might go wrong was just not even there. So that's another thing to remember too. Is like your imagination is very, very good.
Yeah.
What's actually going to happen probably isn't the case.
It could
right?
be completely different than what you anticipated.
Yeah, I saw Tricia at the miles. I saw her at.
Yeah.
We were kids. I mean, there was all kinds. It was great. It was a good ride, fastest ride I've ever done.
Yeah.
Came off the bike. Was doing fairly well. Had a couple incidents. A couple problems. Around mile 14. That was when of the run. Sorry, that was when things started to fall backwards. I knew I was in second around that time. That's when I had to stop for the water, and that's somewhere around those miles. Things get a little hazy, but that's where I remember the demons coming out.
Yep.
Where I had to go back to Louisville and then think about that. And what I thought was just like the most incredible part of this race is, first off, like for 70 to 80% of the race, I felt stronger than I ever had before. And second, before I get into that thing I was going to say, second, I was able to relax into a flow state intentionally through meditation and yoga, which was pulling me forward rather than me having to extrinsically motivate myself to go forward, which is a whole new level of energy that I cannot wait to use in Kona. So like that was incredible. And then I'm still kind of going backwards. If you really want to go to Kona, I don't know. It's okay if I don't go. Just do your best. Blah 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 blah. And then I see Tricia. And I'm slowing down. I'm like, I'll stop at the next aid station and just like really get some water. Yeah. And she goes, what did you say?
Well, he had told me at one point that he, because I always kind of let him know where he is and this and that.
And you're at what mile?
And we were we were after the 19 checkpoint. So we were somewhere between 19 and 20. And, obviously I'm checking it obsessively every time he goes through. And he came up as being in first. And he said, one day I want to see you holding up a number one. I hope to see you holding up a number one. And so I just went like this, and I was holding it, and I said, but only by 10 seconds, so move it.
She told me I had to go, right?
You guys are bringing tears to my eyes, right?
Like, she said go, right? So mile 20 of the Ironman, that's where the race starts. I know this. I'm intentionally holding back until this point. And what I just need to stress is that I don't know who's in front of me because it was a time trial start. So somebody could be in front of me.
You're really racing against the clock.
That started 70 minutes ahead of time, but I didn't start till like 7 minutes later. So I have no clue where I'm at. Yeah. So to hear that, I'm like, oh my gosh. So I was running, 7:45. I dropped to 7s immediately, and then from that point, I put on 5 minutes on that competitor, and ended up catching him right before the shoot. 5 minutes and 5 miles because that was such an inspiration. It's just everything that I was thinking. It was a light switch. You know what I mean? And it didn't matter how fast or how I was just going. So there's nothing that was getting in the way at that point.
You gave me chills when you were talking about that. I'm like,
it was really fun.
So then I finished, and the whole Wolfpack's there. There's 12 of them. They're cheering. I found out later that the announcer was like, I don't know who this Wolfpack crew is, but they're the best cheering squad ever. Yeah. They get to go on. They get interviewed. They're on the news. And then I look over and I see Maverick, my dog. He's not there, but there's a couple thing. It was the first time that my father and mother-in-law had ever been there. My father-in-law had given me this extremely special gift right before, and I still had it on, and I'm just overflowing with joy. Then my athletes come in 2 hours ahead of what they're going to do, and I just re-celebrate every single time they come through. You know what I mean? It was just such a great experience. They all came to the award ceremony, and they were part of it, and I don't know. It's just Like, I will forever remember this as the best race ever, not because of the result, but because of the community, because of the joy, just the sheer, like, I don't even know how to describe it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No, I know.
It's indescribable.
I think it's so you go, it was just a race. No.
But that's kind of what it doesn't stand out.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like, when I go back, I don't remember that.
Yeah.
I remember everything else that I made a point to talk about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I think it's pretty cool though. It's like, I remember seeing on the Facebook video, there was on there, you hear the announcer saying the Wolfpack, and you hear everybody like cheering, and I'm like, oh my gosh! If anybody watched the videos that Trish or any of the other, I think Carrie's is another one that went too, and there's some videos there too. I think it's Carrie, or I can't think of her last name.
They're all over the place.
Yeah, you've got a lot, but seeing some of those videos too, for those of us at home, like we were talking about too, like we were in Alpha, we're like, oh, did you guys hear where Josh is at? Josh is
and that's so important because the community, even back home, like it was just such a community this year, and it does take a village. There's people that go under the radar that did so much for me this year. You know, from as simple as letting me borrow a helmet to like giving me a massage every other week to like providing me with, you know, discounts on equipment. Like, there's so many people that are part of this story, and like when you think about that, for me, like, you know, it's not that I better do X. It's more just like, you know, these people are a part of this. Like, they're a part of it, and I want them to celebrate with me. Does that make sense? It's such a different.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's the difference of you, everybody's celebrating you, or everybody's celebrating together.
Yeah.
The effort that it took everyone to help you get there.
Right.
Whether it's Tricia.
Well, and they're proud.
Yeah.
I mean, so many of them were like, that's my coach, you know, and they take pride in that and seeing him accomplish his goals. You know, he's
inspiring,
teaching them to do that, but then they knew what his was, and to see it come to fruition that day, they were so proud of him.
Yeah, I think anybody who talked to me knew my goals. I'm pretty unapologetic.
No, I think it's you know, it's interesting because there's some that are the mentality that they don't really talk openly about what their goals are, but I feel like there's a lot more accountability when you talk about it.
Oh, for sure.
And you let people know, hey, I'm going to do this.
We've learned that just in other areas of our life, that you have to put it out there, and you have to say, you know, we learned that. And there's all different, you know, people that put it their way. I had gone to a sales training, actually, where they talked about putting it in present tense, not saying I want to do this or I will do this. It's I am. And we basically paid off debt, bought the house we have the jobs we have success in the jobs we have. I don't want to say just because of those things, but it started there. It started with us, and it's funny because to look back at some of the things we initially said about. I have financial conversations with my spouse and do not get stressed out or irritated. And we had to say that because it happened every time. And we wanted it to be different, and so we had to say it, and therefore we became it. And so I think no matter what you're doing, but because he started with, you know, something as simple as on his computer screen saying I will be here in 2019, or, you know, I'm doing this. We are.
It's so cool.
And we're taking a pack with us, which is going to be so fun.
Which is awesome, and it sounds like it's you guys. She shares a lot of the same mentalities you got. I think
Isn't that cool? Because she wasn't here for the beginning of the interview, and she just reiterated everything I said.
We're kind of weird,
but better.
Less words.
She was more articulate. That's why I said. I told you she was more articulate than me.
Okay, so how does this apply? What you guys have talked about to the everyday, whether it's the race or whatnot. How does this apply to the everyday life? Like, if you guys could leave a few nuggets for our listeners.
Yeah, I think she did a really good job of just pounding that home just now. Because like, it's not about the Ironman. It's about what you learn, right? And it's about, you know, we talked about communication. So if there's anything that we've learned over the years, it's not because of that. Just like, communication is vital over everything. And just being on the same page and just saying, this is what I want, this is what I'm looking at. And then if there's conflict, well, this is how I feel. Like, doing things that are best for the family, and then deciding like how you want to navigate the rest of it. I think that's critical, right? Yeah.
So, Kona goals. Let's talk about those.
Yeah, we're going to Kona, and what is so cool is we're going to have more Wolfpack people and just general community than we did at Chattanooga.
Wow.
You think we'll have more?
I do.
I don't know if we'll have more.
I don't know.
There's a lot, and that was so amazing to me, is how many people were immediately like, well, of course we're going.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not a small commitment to make.
Oh,
to
no.
say,
Yeah,
I'll be in Hawaii a year from now.
Yeah.
It's not a small commitment for us. We're still figuring out how we're going to get there, but we're trusting that we are.
You guys are setting the attention, doing all the things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But the fact that so many people, and again, I think a lot of people will say it and not follow through. They have their deposits in, and it's going to be so exciting. One thing I want to say, and I know Josh has just, given accolade after accolade to his team. When we were driving home from Chattanooga that Monday, I guess it was, I found myself getting really emotional because in all the years he's been doing this, we've kind of talked about his teams as almost like classes, like graduating classes, because there is a certain point for some people, for most people, I would say,
that's okay.
that this is a season. They have a bucket list. They're going to do a coach. They're going to sign up with a coach. They're going to do this Ironman, but that's kind of it. This is not a lifelong journey for them like it is for him.
Right.
I mean, I know he's going to be doing this until he can't, and then he'll figure out a way to continue.
He'll figure out a way to still do it.
That's another story for another podcast, but I do remember that, seeing some 85-year-old man, and I was like, oh, that's going to be me in my life. I'm going to be here forever, so I better enjoy it. And we've kind of accepted that. It was really hard the first time it happened, when you develop this bond with people, and then they quit. They're done. They've done their thing. They sell their bike, and you sometimes never see them again.
They do it. And they're done. Yeah.
So we to kind of combat that, we kind of looked at it as, we have to think of it as graduating classes, and we help them get to where they are, and they're moving on. And I was driving home from Chattanooga, I found myself thinking, like, I don't want them to graduate. I want this group to.
It's like
I just wanted to hang on to
forever.
it for so long, because they are just such an amazing group of people that, I think especially when you're in a competitive sport, it's really easy to compete with each other and make, kind of get envious of what the other person is doing.
Yep.
And this group, and I think sometimes triathlon in general, but this group has none of that. They are so supportive. They are so uplifting, and just being around them is just, there's nothing better. So, I do think a lot of them will be in it. Yeah.
Come.
So, the fact that so many of them immediately jumped on and want to join us in Kona and see him, do the World Championships was just a continuation of how amazing they are, and what they want to do to be a part of it. And it's just going to be, the first time we went was amazing. This is going to be undescribable, to have our friends and our family and our children there, and it's going to be so great.
It's going to be a good day.
And with that, that's good. One thing I wrote down on my hand, actually, the only thing I wrote down on my hand during the race of Chattanooga was joy. That's the second goal, is to bring joy back to Kona, not get hyper focused, right? Allow myself to be fully involved with who I am as a person, and not just triathlete Josh, right? Within that context, I will go top 10 at the Ironman World Championships in the 35 to 39 age groups in 2019.
You guys just heard it. He said his intention.
Top 10, and that is a highly lofty goal. It really is, and in order to do that, I have to get, I figured out 10% faster. 10% faster. So here we go.
It didn't sound that bad.
1% per month.
Yeah, there you go.
1% easy, right?
So I do have a couple other questions for you, and then we'll wrap it up here. So we've talked about this before, but if there's someone who's considering trying their first triathlon, or whether it's a sprint or whatnot, what advice would you give them? Like, what do you want them to remember throughout their training or whatnot? And it doesn't have to be anything that's related to, this is how, make sure you do this with your stroke, or make sure you do this when you bike. Mentally, what do you want them to remember?
I think that there's so much that you could be said, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that I'd love just to go back to some of my bigger mantras, because I feel like they're so overcasting. So, like, I think that, okay, I was running the other day and I was thinking about this, and I need to patent this one, I think.
Yes.
It's really not about like how hard something is. It's about how hard you want to go. So like if you run up a hill, it's not how hard can I run up this hill, it's how hard do I want to go, right? So what that means to me is that in everything that we do, the effort is what matters. So it's always hard. It's not like, Ironman and triathlon and in general life is not about who's the strongest. It's about who chooses to be the strongest, who does not allow fatigue to set in and dictate who you are, right? In other words, like everything around us is telling us slow down. There's all this pressure. You have to be, confined to this certain bubble, right? So, but that's just not true. The only thing that you have to do in order to be successful at anything is first you set the goal, right? Visualize it, decide how it's going to happen, make a plan, don't just throw it out there, and then focus on 1 mile at a time. 1 mile at a time. Then the goal will happen. The process over the outcome.
Right, and even if it's like even harder at the mile standpoint, like I remember you driving home, it's one more step or one more stroke or one more breath or what, right? That's, if you break it down even to a micro level, you can make it accomplishable.
Absolutely.
Right.
And you might feel pretty bad on this mile.
Yeah.
The next mile might not be that way. And there's always a finish line. Always a finish line.
And I would say, because I was that person, and I, when I was doing it, when I first was watching triathlons, I remember obviously my first thought was I could never do that. Yeah. And I'm kind of, I've gotten better in being married to Josh, but my first reaction to most things is, well, there's no way I can do that.
Yeah.
But I think what I learned from it is I can do anything if I follow a plan. Yeah. Because I started off swimming 10 minutes, and that was all I could do, and built up to doing a half Ironman. And so it really is you just run a mile, and then you run 2 miles, and then but if you follow a plan, you can do anything. It's a choice. So,
it's setting the right intentions.
And I've even said, I know I can do an Ironman. I have no desire to do one.
No, I'm
choosing not to because I don't want to. But, I went from there is no way I could ever do that to I did a half Ironman and hit my goals. I mean, I'm not qualifying for any races. But
that's okay.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not about...
It was about overcoming, the things that I thought I would never be able to do.
Yeah. That's what it's about.
Yeah. And she showed herself she could do things that she
I proved to myself that the things I thought were impossible aren't. So.
And guess what? That opens you up for more, right? Like you could, there's such a wonderful impact when it comes to a sport like that, especially an endurance sport. Just doing it, like you think about it, when you are able to identify, hey, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was, or hey, I finished.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
Well, and on a smaller scale, I still think, even after all this time, most people hear triathlon and they think Kona. I mean, they think Ironman. They don't realize that there are different levels. So that's honestly, if someone says it, that's, I've always wanted to do that, but I don't think I could. That's the first thing I let them know is, well, there's different, there's a sprint, there's a this, there's a this, there's a that. Try something, start small and just see how it goes.
I like that. Just try something. Okay, so Josh, we're going to close with this question, unless you have more you want to add. With all of this that we've talked about today, what do you, at the end of the day, what do you want to be remembered for?
Whoa. Man. So, my mission is to inspire, to help people achieve what they once thought was impossible. I just want to be remembered as the guy who not only said that, but did it and helped those people, like everyone, hopefully lifted them up in some way. I really firmly believe that it comes from above, down, and out. So if I can shine light out, then I've done something right.
Yeah, and that comes from the what drives you kind of thing is What do you know? And I think it really truly takes a giver to do something to that perspective, right? Like you're giving so much energy to others too, to help build, whether it's, we talked about the Find Your Endurance speaking that you do. It's what you do with your coaching and training, what you give at home, right? There's so much involved in that. And that's why I wanted to ask that question is, what drives you? What do you want to be remembered for at the end of the day? And I think that you keep doing what you're doing. I think you're doing it now already. I think people do know you for that, but I think it's going to continue to get bigger. And I can't wait to see what happens in 2019. I think it's going to be great.
You coming?
No, I won't be there. But I'll be watching on Facebook.
We need those people too.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you, both of you. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much for
time,
having
Trish.
us.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
It was really good. Josh, thank you for everything you do.
Absolutely.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, guys, that is a wrap on episode 25. What great information. I just love how, with the dynamic between Josh and his wife, Tricia, the things they talked about. One of the biggest things that I want to repeat that they discussed was making sure that you, if you're a competitor or you're just getting started on your journey, you sit down with whoever's in your life that's supporting you, whether it's a significant other, a boyfriend, husband, wife, sit down and have that conversation with them and say, hey, look, this is what I want to do. I need your support. And this is what it's looking like. And make sure you communicate that stuff ahead of time so that they know how, they know what's going on with you, as well as they know how to support you, right? And another good thing too is discuss, hey, what are some things that, I can do to support you through this stuff? Competing is tough. I mean, I myself have done a few powerlifting competitions, but nothing in comparison to the latitude of what Josh has done with his sports profession. But I love what they said about communicating and making sure you're getting on the right page. The community perspective is important too, because without a community, and not everybody's perfect, but my perspective is without a community, some of us need accountability. I mean, I know I do. I mean, I see people, and I talk to more people now in the gym than I ever did, but it's important to have people in your life that will support you, even when you don't feel like getting out there and doing what you need to do. So I love that perspective too. Hey, so just so you guys know, next week's episode is with, we're going to be with Jonathan Pfizer and Philip Butler. They're going to be talking about those things that you can do in the kitchen and in the gym to be more effective and to make progress and reach those goals that you guys want to reach. So make sure you guys tune into that. And of course, thank you for everybody's support, the questions you guys send us. We love hearing from you guys. And everybody have a great and fantastic week.